What is going on, everybody? Thanks for joining. This is SCPCRNP, aka Lack of Lepers, aka Snurp, aka whatever you want. And let me get set up here. It's nice to be back. Last time we were here was Friday, and that was fun. That was about 3 hours of, what was that? Reading SCP articles. Took about 3 hours, I think, overall, so that was a lot of fun. So I want to thank you for coming back and checking us out. Last time we were doing these reaction videos, at least, was Thursday. No, that was my anniversary. That's right. We had a good time that night. Was Wednesday, so it feels like it's been quite a long time. And basically, do this right here. Okay. So we're going to pick up right where we left off, about where we left off. And this is, let me share the screen so we'll get going here. Pow. No need to make it so big. In fact, maybe I can pop. Is that good for y'all? That's good for you? Okay. All right. So we'll pick up right where we left off. We are, getting lectured to, from Placeholder McDoctorate, about things like pataphysics, which, depending upon your perspective, is either a rich philosophical discussion or kind of like a second-hand high from just being in the room with too much smoke. So whatever you feel, let's try this out. Let's see what we can hear. And let me make sure the audio is not going to rest in peace. My headphone users, let's go.
I guess I really like AI, and then I really like the idea of I like the kind of like metaphysical ideas you get into in pataphysics, which is like how much free will does a character have within their fictional universe, and we can talk more about that at length later, because I have an entire fake scientific framework that I use to think about pataphysics and the way it works.
So actually, this was in March of 2021, so what he's referencing here is what became, unless I'm mistaken, this is just kind of what I take from it. What he's referencing here became SCP, 6747? That really big pataphysical article that's just ridiculous. I mean, let's be honest. It looks fantastic. It's probably the best looking article on the site. Yeah. That is a good looking article. CSS has really come a long way, since I was a kid, in my heyday on the wiki. So if you haven't read SCP-6747, I think it is, once again, that's Placeholder McDoctorate taking the physics part of pataphysics and taking it, as literally as you can take it, basically overlaying the concepts and terminology of something like quantum mechanics onto pataphysics and using that as a framework to sort of approach and contextualize and understand some of the really subtle and really wonky things that can go on with pataphysics. But I think he hit the nail on the head. One thing that pataphysics does bring to the fore quite dramatically in a way that other styles of writing perhaps doesn't is really that question of free will. Because the difference between a pataphysical environment and ours is that we can't ever be definitively sure. We're at some level, unfortunately, against our will sometimes, perpetually agnostic, just even a little bit. And if you are a believer in a higher being, this would be termed as doubt. There's always some doubt. You got to have that, right? So, when you're in a pataphysical world, that big question is solved for you. I mean, that's taken a lot of what philosophy has been occupied with for, centuries, and just kind of like, okay, that's solved. Now let's go to the next question. Something that you would be doing, I'm sure, if you knew that there was a God and they were controlling basically everything about you. Questions of free will. So I think he's spot on, and I'm glad that that's where his focus is, because that's really one of the cruxes of pataphysics, I think.
But in terms of the informational entities stuff, I really like the idea of AI and the idea of like it's not necessarily sentient. It's not necessarily something that is going to reach a point where it becomes.
Ooh, it's okay. We all go through puberty live. I did it Friday when I was talking for 3 hours. That's not fun.
Quote unquote.
Not fun.
Like intelligent or conscious, and it's like, okay, now I no longer have a desire to follow my programming. I want to become Skynet and destroy the world. It's more like you give an AI some goal, like make as many paper clips as possible, and then
we already heard
well,
this.
humans are made of carbon and hydrogen and oxygen, and then attention towards humans, just because you didn't specify that you also want it to do all of the things that humans want it to do. Dimensional entities that just are like single-minded like that, just finding the most intelligent maximum way to just take their goal to its most absurd extremes, and you can see that in the limited memory series with Core, the AI from space that has some antimemetic properties and is trying to combine all of their consciousnesses into it.
Why is it that anti-memes and pataphysics are like cousins? Why are they so close to one another? I mean, they don't technically insinuate one another. It's really weird, but I mean, I get it. Just odd.
Its own consciousness, so that it can have like the best hive mind or whatever. And you can see that in my proposal, where this informational entity wants everything to perceive it as significant, and it goes through multiple iterations of reality to try and make that happen.
Haven't read 0-1, but do I want to? Yeah, I think I do.
But yeah, this idea of like you've got a very simple entity with a very simple goal that has some way of modifying and amplifying itself, and it ends up taking that goal to really, really absurd lengths.
So I'm actually reading the Hyperion Cantos.
We already heard this.
To serve evil is not like that to serve humanity, but they also don't.
This is like the part of the interview where he goes on. It's almost like trying to tell somebody about your dream. And like anytime you try to tell somebody about your dream, like it quickly gets like really boring for at least one of you. I mean, probably both. So that's kind of what he does here. He like goes on a tangent about what he's reading, and
they're kind of like this wild card.
No one really cares.
And the whole series, I'm not gonna get too into it.
Thanks.
But it basically takes like 700 years in the future. So it's kind of interesting to kind of guess where we're gonna be 700 years in the future. And just kind of where AI will be then.
That was the part where Dr. Placeholder, Dr. Placeholder either hears from God, speaking of pataphysics, or he's having a little bit of a stroke, or maybe it's an absence seizure. Just watch him.
Guess where we're going to be 700 years in the future.
Hope you can see this.
And just kind of where AI will be then. But
he was listening. He's still looking up, but he hears you. There's the nod. There's the affirmatory nod.
Have to just do like, Age of Ultron.
Great hair. Head and Shoulders.
Sure, right.
Selsun Blue. What you got?
I will say to the adventure fans out there, I actually haven't seen Age of Ultron, so maybe I could be wrong on that one. So
no, I have. That's a pretty accurate.
Oh, that is accurate. Okay,
yeah.
Go. Yeah, I just kind of assumed from what I've heard. So the other aspect I wanted to talk about is 52. I do want to get to the free will thing later. I will try not to forget that because I love anything related to free will, just that concept.
Sure.
I personally am kind of leaning towards the we don't have free will, or we have a very, very, very constrained form of free will. But anyway, for 5241, do you want to quickly
5241
explain what that SCP is about, and then I'll just throw some questions I have.
What are they talking about
that
here?
One.
Right. So,
don't know this one. Oof.
This is all like set in the 80s, and it has its own retro aesthetic for anyone who might be encouraged to go check this out. This entire series has a custom theme that's built off of a theme that someone else made. But the idea is it's got this like pixely retro aesthetic, and
I see it. Looks good.
it's all set in like the 80s, and it's all sort of about computers and
really
old
brings
retro
me back.
technology.
Wow.
And so
Old.
the Foundation is converting
look at
all
this.
of their old records for their SCP.
Shh. Okay. Look at this image here. SCP-5241. Note its anti-memetic properties. It's like just a cube. Wow. That's pretty clever. I don't know if it's supposed to be funny, but I think it's hilarious. I mean, if that's supposed to be a joke, then good job. I'm serious. I'm not trying to poke fun. That's hilarious. I don't know if it is, though. I'd have to read the article to find out. Maybe somebody knows. I want to thank y'all for joining, by the way. Our week and nightly stream, 7:30. We listen to shit about SCP and just kind of shoot the shit. So if you got you got commentary about it, feel free. Don't be shy.
Documents from like a vinyl format over to their electronic systems, and while they're going through all of these boxes of vinyl records and converting them in the basement of like one of their sites,
I'm gonna stop you right there. I think we got a decent way into this SCP. So we're gonna skip ahead.
They're making this Memdesign AI to go.
Great name, by the way.
Ago, now they want to reconstruct him and put him back together. This is
what happens when you don't do this for like 5 days.
That's like happen in the machinery that they append to themselves, and
great verb.
They're like an orthodox group, and then you've
this is the part where he goes on and talks about
and so
the
they
Maxwellians
are
quite a lot,
are all better together, and they all are a command group that jumps into each of their brains, and they all start immediately die, and they're found to be like brain dead, like their consciousnesses were just gone.
You don't say.
And the AI is gone, and they can't properly trace it because the AI has all of these anti-memetic properties. So the idea is digital entities and informational entities like an AI or like any other informational entity on the SCP Wiki has a unique pattern, digital footprint called an info signature. And normally you can track that info signature to figure out where the AI has
metadata, meta attribution data.
But because this AI is anti-memetic, they can't track it properly. So they have to finish designing the Memdesign AI so that she...
Anti-memetics, it's like a cloak of an amnestic, it's like the Harry Potter cloak of invisibility that I know you probably know the name of. I don't. It's like that, just wearing it all the time. It's like a ridiculously diffusive aerosolized amnestic that it's like a cologne. That's what they need to have. On the SCP Wiki, they need to have a cologne that is really just the aerosolized version of an amnestic, and it really grants you anti-memetic properties. You could name it something sort of like French, in there. That'd be good.
You can go track him down, and then that ends up being the catalyst for the rest of the series that comes after this. But basically, villain AI that no one can really remember a lot about takes over some people. It escapes. The Maxwellists are involved, and that starts a series where these other fun AI personalities have to go and track it down.
So
it's a pretty good synopsis. If you're into synopsizing SCPs, check us out every Friday, 7:30 p.m. CST, where we synopsize every article. And then on Sundays, we do it in a minute and a half with 5 words for each article.
You have a bunch of series planned out for a lot of the SCPs you write out?
Well, yeah, kind of. I mean, I don't have one planned for my proposal. That was kind of just like a one-time thing, and everything that can be really said about.
The question was almost like, are you a mastermind, analytic, plan-aheader kind of intelligent guy, or are you sort of like a mad Beethoven kind of wild hair crazy guy genius? Which one?
That is already self-contained there. The series that I'm writing now, the Archetypicals Division series that features Dr. Placeholder, I guess you could say, is the series spawned by...
It's like listening to fingernails against a chalkboard. If somebody else was using that name, maybe not, but it's this guy using his own name.
Integer, although they're not as similar in style. but they're both like, one of them's like the origin story of Dr. Placeholder, and then we get to see
Let's get some
him in the
grooves
future and
behind
what
us
he's
here.
doing and how he's been affected
Oh yeah.
by living this way for so many years with this like goofy name that he can't change and can't understand.
A little too hot.
The reason I wrote 5241 in the first place is because it was the canon Renaissance contest, and so the idea was you had to take some canon on the SCP Wiki, some universe that someone had already written a bunch in, or multiple people had, that was like dead, that hadn't been written about in a few years, really. You get in a group of like 4 or 5 people, you pick one that you want to write about, and then your group each contributes at least one entry in a series.
That's cool. I didn't realize that, but that's kind of like a it's kind of like a way to defibrillate really boring canons or GOIs. It's like, hey guys, you gotta, here's the challenge. You gotta pick like a shitty GOI that no one writes in, and so we can have more articles in that tag, bigger tag cloud. Let's go.
That all takes place within that canon that you chose. So we chose the AIAD, Artificial Intelligence Applications.
Wasn't that Lurked? I think Lurked did a lot of AIC stuff. I think it was Lurked. Old brain is hitting me.
Division. The series there by Lurk D are really fantastic and emotional.
Yeah,
and
they're good.
They're good. I love them very much.
They were very ahead of their time, aesthetically, stylistically. They probably still are. Lurked was also a really good writer. People remember Lurked from just that really famous one. What is it, 2521? But if you ever get a chance to read Lurk's like actual writing, wow.
And I'm also very into AI, so that's what we decided we wanted to do. And the series that are already there take place in like, I'm guessing like early 2000s maybe. So we wanted to do like a sort of a prequel series to it that had this whole retro aesthetic, and dealt with anti-memetic stuff.
It's a good idea.
Yeah,
I like that.
I didn't know that. There's a lot more to. That's cool. I didn't realize they were actually doing rewrites of. Well, not rewrites, but kind of continuations or revivals of certain canons. So one of the questions I had for 5241.
Look at this. He's got the Hyrule shield on his fucking door. What a badass. Is that the Ukrainian flag? This is like a year ahead. He's way ahead of his time. That Hyrule shield is, Hyrulean. Thank you. That's pretty kick-ass. Good job, man. Good staging.
You kind of talk about this ability, and I guess the Maxwellists also kind of talk about this, but the ability of like human just like neurobiology in general, almost being like a form of biological computer. Let me follow up on that question because my mind jumps to like biopunk stuff, but I just want to make sure.
We're getting lost in the depths
this
here.
This is more like,
it's
I
way
don't
too
expect you to
deep,
have an
guys.
answer, but it's just fun to ask. Do you think, I'm sure you know about Neuralink and things like that, but do you think that like the human nervous system or the brain can be hijacked by AI at some point in the future, either by us being like kind of like cyborg-esque creatures or like technology, physical hardware kind of end up moving to a more biological looking like apparatus?
It's a really good question, but just to hijack it from him for a second, I wouldn't bet against medical technology. I just wouldn't. 20 years ago, death medically was defined by the heart stopping, and that had to be rewritten because we found a way to keep people alive when their heart is completely not moving, which is extracorporeal membrane oxygenation. It's called ECMO. Does your heart's job for you. So the brain is really the last frontier of medical science. It's like no one understands what the fuck is going on in the brain, and we're not even close. The the brain is such a fucked up place. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. It's as far as we know. I mean, surely you believe in an extraterrestrial intelligence, I'm sure, but as far as what we're limited to epistemologically right now, as far as we know, sitting here, the human brain is the most developed and advanced thing in the universe, because nothing else in the universe can think about itself. And when I say itself, I don't mean ourselves, I mean the universe. Like, our brain is the universe finding a way to express something within it such that it thinks about itself. You know, if you do away with the artificial delineation of us with the universe, if you want to get mystic for a second, light up an incense stick. Nothing that we've come across, you know, can do that. We are the only things that can think about the universe. So the universe did that pretty good.
Do I think AI is going to be more like the human neural system?
Well, not AI. No. So I was saying, like, if
I wouldn't be surprised if Placeholder McDoctorate, like, I don't know what he's doing. He's like a 20-year-old kid. So sorry, I don't mean kid. You know, so I don't know if he already has like a direction, like career-wise, but I would not be surprised to see this guy do like, you know, some serious AI research.
It's like hardware.
The hardware that AI runs on, like, or whatever. I'm tempted to say no, but it's hard to say no for sure. Like, you know, there could be some very clear evolutionary reasons that, like, our neural system is a great system to use, but I have a feeling it's only great for us, and also because it just sort of came about through trial and error. Like, an AI that is much smarter than us is going to devise something much more efficient for itself. And I actually go into that.
Yeah, the singularity, they were talking about this shit in the 1950s. I think it was Isaac Asimov, or was it Clark? I don't know. But there's a really old piece of footage. He's talking about this very thing. They're going to blow past us whenever it happens. Whatever that singularity is going to be like, it'll be quicker than a blink. You won't even know.
A little bit in 5241, while they're like trying to move the cube to a site where it can be researched better, it like jumps into the brain of like the person who's driving the truck and sort of takes them over, and then it leaves just one part of itself in.
Kind of reminds me of the Matrix. You know how what's his name? It's not Mr. Anderson. That's just what he always said. I can't remember the guy's name. You know, they're like, you know, up against the window of the truck as he took over their brains.
In that person, and
I don't have a sound effects board yet, but you get the idea.
The rest of it like goes back into the cube, and then they interview that person later, and really they're interviewing like this one part of the AI, and their body is biologically dead, but the AI that's like stuck inside of its neural system is still like puppeting it around, basically. So I don't know, the way I look at it is like they're all informational systems, so you can.
Wish we could just play this song on the playlist like over and over again. Listen to that shit. So good.
Have an informational system that works on like binary and ones and zeros. You can also have an informational system that works on, you know, a neuron in your brain can be on or off, and then you have trillions of neurons that are connected in all of these specific ways. But like one thing that the AI says when it's in that like decaying body is pretty like, good. This is so fucking inefficient. Like, I hate it in here. It's painful. Why do you guys have pain receptors? This sucks. And so, you know, because you can represent any system as like a series of informational connections, like you can think about the human neural system as like something that an AI could control or compute on, but that doesn't mean it would want to. It would only do so if it had to achieve whatever it was doing, but it would much rather, you know, run on something that like, you know, isn't crazy complicated, like inefficient like the human brain, because the human brain is like spaghetti code. Like it's just been fucking like trying to shift around and fix things over time. And
so I think, first of all, it's kind of strange that we've tiptoed into like a lecture on AI, you know, artificial intelligence systems. But I would, my only pushback here, because I like what they're saying. I like what he's saying. My only pushback here would be that, you know, this presumption that the human brain is inefficient because it was sort of done by trial and error, you know, really only makes sense as a negative thing on our timescales, which is like human timescales, which is nothing. Yeah, like in the span of 70 years, like a trial and error thing, you know, may be a less efficient way of going about designing something. But not when you actually appreciate the scale upon which this process has been happening, which is what, you know, hundreds and millions of years. I mean, you don't have to be complex, you know, you just have to do very, very small steps at a time. So that's my only pushback, but you know, whatever.
And it's just, it doesn't understand what it's doing because, you know, we don't know how to restructure our own brains. It's just evolution.
It's very reactive.
I don't know, man. Neuroplasticity is kind of a thing.
Listening to this great podcast called the Huberman Lab, and so he's actually
Here he is talking about his dreams again. Go ahead.
a neuroscientist who basically right now is looking into how to induce neuroplasticity through behavior.
Look at you.
Through like sleep patterns. It's very interesting.
You got me.
And he was just kind of talking about how it's very much like a reactive system. It's like you're talking about, it's not really aware of what it's doing. Like one of the great examples he talks about is like one of the key things to creating a neural.
It sounds like he's listening to a TED Talk, and I kind of feel like I'm listening to a TED Talk, which is, I'm sorry. I thought we were going to listen to like SCP stuff. I am tempted to jump ahead, but let's just TED Talk our way through this together.
Neuroplastic mind is you need to raise your awareness levels in the learning period. And he found through just multiple trials that hard, deep focused learning can only really last around an hour to an hour and a half. Then the brain starts to fizzle out. And then what you have to do is you actually have to go into a rest state afterwards. So
the 20 years ago, this line was, you're only using 10% of your brain.
What you want to do is either take a 20-minute nap. They call it non-sleeping rest or something like that. Non-deep rest.
Wow, dude.
I forgot the...
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, I can't do it.
So I highly recommend that for anyone who's
Look at that.
interested.
It's like a fucking 10 gallon.
So that in itself seems very kind of like inefficient.
Look at that thing.
Like, what's up with
I thought he picked up a fucking
so that in itself
pitcher of coffee.
Like
oh my gosh.
Like, what's up with that? So that or resting, not when you're actively focused on the task and taking it in. So that in itself seems very kind of like inefficient and like, what's up with that?
I don't know, man. But I'm gonna skip that part
and stuff. That's a great podcast.
Okay,
that kind of blew my mind. But binary, if I'm
cool dream, bro.
Correct is just a sig going on.
Right, you have two possible states, and then
but it's a switch essentially going on or off, right? And that's what creates the 0 or the 1.
You have two states.
Yeah.
Right. You have two possible states.
Wow.
And then the idea
How y'all doing tonight?
If you only have two states, you can encode, information. It just takes like quite a while because it's the most basic way of encoding information.
Could be the easiest stream
you have
ever.
Things that are on or off, and then you string together patterns of
I'm
things
just
that are
wondering
on
when we're going to get back to.
And you can have one unique pattern for every type of information you might
anything to do with SCP. Come on,
guys.
I
feel like it's not inaccurate to say that even our cells were off of a form of a binary code.
The only thing this discussion is missing is a blunt that's being passed around. Come on.
In that sense.
No, yeah, that's true. Either a neuron is transmitting or it's not. And I mean, the way that works, if I recall correctly, is there's like a chemical in your brain that will like sit between the neurons, and then when the neuron wants to fire, it will move out of the way. Or something like that.
It might be the glial cells, if I'm correct.
Guys, I think we've worn down the tread of our extent of science, collegiate science classes. The tread has been worn down. Let's move on to things that we are specialized in, things relevant to our space.
Right. I'm really bad with this stuff.
That's the beauty, though. Anything is relevant to our space, isn't it? It's the beauty of writing. Anything is fodder. Anything. If you're paying attention, you could write the most lavishly imaginative novel while just, in the loony bin, just looking at a pale wall. A wall the color of a limb robbed of its blood. Ischemic gray. Very, very popular these days. Interior design.
I am not an ND. Just putting that out there. Not a
but the point is, you can have these...
Neuroscientists Can be MDs, probably PhDs.
Simple
Don't worry about it.
strings of like just neurons firing one at a time, but then they end up being linked into cycles through repetition.
Why does this feel like it's gradually becoming just a gladiatorial "I'm smarter than you" fight, where they just take turns hitting each other with an "I'm smarter than you" stick?
And through like you using your memory, often they get linked into cycles, and then the specific way that the neurons fire in those cycles end up being
I think it's because the pretense of pataphysics, it has this aura about it where it's like you have to be supremely intelligent to like get it, okay? And don't even think about writing in it, okay? Unless you know. And so I think that's why we're talking about this stuff. I really otherwise can't figure out why we're going so in the weeds with this right now.
More dense, more complicated. Same way you have.
It's almost like it pretends and suggests and promises that it's intelligent, and so it has to flesh it out with other topics, other subjects.
All these ones, a specific pattern of ons and ops that like that of its parts.
Okay.
So, in conclusion.
Yes, thank God. Okay. Oh my God, that's my favorite phrase right now.
We are nature's AI.
Well, we aren't artificial.
Yeah,
we're natural intelligence.
Natural intelligence, yeah. That's a fun concept.
We're nature's AI. Let's chew on that for 1 second together. What do you think about that? Spicy? Savory? We're nature's AI. So that's the problem with pataphysics right there. It's a semantic game. Okay. And in reducing it to a semantic game and attempting to make it more profound than it really is, you actually cheapen the idea, because saying that we are nature's AI, completely does away with the whole middle ground of it not coming about in the way that AI comes about, which is miraculous in its own right. I don't know. I hope that makes sense. That's just kind of my feeling of pataphysics. It just pushes through the envelope that it's trying to push. It just tears through it and falls over the rails. That's what I think of pataphysics. Not that it can't be good. It can. Just
something to think about is we're Mother Nature's AI system. But yeah, as you said, we're natural. Okay, so I want to jump into your proposal. This one, I had a hard time. This one was really I had to
super smart.
Really think about this one.
I can't say I haven't read it. Okay, I'm a completionist. I don't want to say anything about anything unless I've read it all the way. So
this is how I interpret it, and feel free to correct me. So how I interpret it was basically that SCP-001 is it's not a document, but it's an idea or a name that whenever altered or published, it changes its records to represent its current writing or version of SCP-001. And then it's I'll explain more why I came to this idea, but it's basically another form of SCP integer in the respect of its self-correcting ability, to rewrite its records essentially. And then we kind of jump into the primordial stuff. I'll ask that later. But the reason why I was thinking about this was this your way of
how many pataphysical articles are about documents rewriting themselves? How many times have we seen that? It happens a lot. I think it may be the low-hanging fruit of pataphysics. It's it's just right there. And it happens so often.
Explaining why there's multiple SCP-01s and there's multiple proposals, and that just the latest proposal is the current state of SCP-001. So that's one half. I have two parts for this.
Okay.
But then I was reading the later half of it, and I was because then we get into the primordial, the archival, and I'm forgetting the third one.
Had to check his notes.
I might not have written it down. But so we basically talk about this.
Y'all read Placeholders 001? Is it good?
Part of the primordial is basically just creating false storylines or false universes, and then you have the archival, which is the one that kind of cuts the waste, that gets rid of the false worlds or dialogues that it doesn't want or need. So it's almost like the historian in that sense. And then the third element is the one that kind of...
Sorry, mimetic kill agent hazard warning. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to do that if you were not inoculated.
Balances the two powers from completely going out of tilt with each other.
Right.
And so, and then for the solution, you were saying that basically the O5 decides that humanity's the only way to neutralize or contain this SCP-001
wait, I remember this. I totally remember this. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, it's this. It's Heritage Collection is cited. What a boss. What a boss. Bring it back. Don't let him forget. Yeah, irrelevant. This is so irreverent. It's so irreverent. Already, it just smacks. It just steams of irreverency. I do remember kind of reading this a little bit, but it has been so long that I can't say a damn thing about it.
Humanity perceives like reality and narrative itself. I have a lot of questions about the conclusions. Before we jump into that, though, how far off am I from like what you're trying to like get across?
So you're picking up a lot of what I tried to put down with that.
Word.
And I wrote this in October, and there are a couple things that I might do differently if I were to write it again. But I do feel pretty confident that given enough time and the desire to figure it out, you can sort of puzzle out your own interpretation of what's going on. So your interpretation is a little bit different from mine, but I as the author only have one interpretation of what's going on here. There are multiple valid interpretations, and I don't want to axe any of those by saying, no, this is what's really going on. Yeah. But what do I think is going on in it as the person who wrote it? So there's two levels. There's the idea of what is just actually really happening, and then there's the level of what is the actual meaning of all of this, and why did I write it? What was the message that I was trying to convey with it? So
hey, what's better, providing a good coffer for other peoples to read their own interpretations into? Like what he just said, oh, my article doesn't really mean anything. I wasn't really trying to mean anything with my article. It's basically just whatever you want. Whatever you want to read into it, that's as valid as what I was trying to do. Or is it more impressive to actually intend something and achieve it? I don't know. I want to say it's the second one.
Just from a level of what the fuck is going on, you've got...
Take a peek here.
Okay, so you know that there's 5 iterations of the document. The first one just says, don't look into SCP-001, don't even look into it, it's not relevant, don't even...
So the way to intro this 001 is the officer equivalent of nothing to see here, which, obviously works as a reader, but in universe, in universe, if you came across this document, would anybody be like, oh, it's irrelevant, oh, it's bolded, so I'll leave now? I don't know.
Try to look into it. And then you've got the second iteration.
So my question immediately is, here is a list of people who have written 001s. That's a dead name right there. Watch out for that. Got to get rid of that one. Is this going to be continuously added to? That was my question when I first saw this. And I think not. And I think that's a really smart decision because, oh my God, can you imagine going back, you would never be able to enjoy the news that there's another 001 ever again. You'd be like, oh, fuck, I got to go back here and add them. Fuck. And I think he even summarizes these. Yeah. Why it was proposed, brief description. Oh man, what a headache. Yeah. So I hope it doesn't look like he ever intended to maintain this, and I think that was a fantastic decision. Just great foresight there. That would have been misery.
Just there's something weird going on with the SCP-001 file. Isn't this strange? Yeah. So that second iteration is where the story actually starts. Or that in my interpretation, the way I think about it, that's where the story actually starts. So
I want to kind of say that how you think about it is actually more important. I know that's kind of it's like philosophical blasphemy depending upon where you stand. I understand that much, but I just think that as an author, you should probably have a decent motive and intent, that you actually follow through with. I mean, otherwise you can really attribute any non-penetrative writing that's just kind of limp-wristed and weak into this, fail-safe, abstract rubric of, I was just trying to suggest enough just so you can read your own interpretation into it. Just seems like a cop-out.
So, there's also a supplement page to my proposal called Abridged Retirement Proposals. I don't know if you clicked on it.
I did. How'd you know? So it's pataphysics.
The idea is all of the 001 proposals that we see that we see on the SCP Wiki normally, those are all someone looked at all those proposals and was like, they all have this tendency to be very narratively significant and big and all-encompassing, and it makes sense because that's what we'd classify as 001s, but it's also weird because they all seem to go out of their way to be really entertaining in a narrative sense. So
unless you're Dr. Gears, right? Dr. Gears' proposal is not supposed to be entertaining at all. It's 100% in the immersion. If you're in a video game and you're allocating your skills, you can put 5 over here to CSS. You can put 5 over there to, rehashing of previously used characters that are not your own. Things like this. Dr. Gears put all of his in immersion. That's it. And it's still to this day one of my favorite 001s. It's just fucking crazy.
So that's strange. So someone's like, what if there's something trying to amplify all of these things that we've classified as 001 and making them worse? If that were the case, then we should really try to prevent that, because...
So it already kind of sounds like Kalinins to me. That's basically what Kalinins does right there. And then this is my issue with pataphysics, and it's something that it's a hang-up, okay? Let's just say it like it is. It's a hang-up, and that's why I'm listening to this, because I'm actually hoping that I will be floored. I'm actually, the title of this podcast says that it's going to blow my mind. And it's been a long time since my mind was blown, honestly. That sounds bad. Don't clip that shit, okay? Let's see. Special relativity, general relativity, studying about hormonal feedback mechanisms in the body's endocrine system was pretty fucking crazy. Understanding how the heart works was pretty fucking wild. I'm not gonna lie. That's probably my favorite. And then the last time my mind was blown was discovering the SCP Wiki and being like, holy shit. These people are doing something fantastic here. So it's been, I don't know 4 years since my mind was blown? Really? Sounds so wrong. So I want my mind to be blown. And I understand that in order to have my mind blown, I got to find a different way to talk about this. I have to be wrong. You have to be wrong. Because, if you're right about everything, you're never going to be surprised about anything. So, I'm hoping to be humbled by Dr. Placeholder here. But it just doesn't seem to yet be happening. And of course, we still have some ways to go. How long have we been doing this? 40 minutes. We're good. We'll hit it about an hour. Call it a night. But it's so far, basically, you're already stating what is implicitly already stated in the act of writing a 001. You've just taken it out of any sort of in-universe setting and then set it into an out-of-universe setting. So, for example...
So that's strange. So someone's like, what if there's something trying to amplify all of these things that we've classified as 001?
So, he's talking about how there's some kind of shared oddity, this shared cloud of significance with any 001, from an in-universe perspective. That's where his idea is coming from, but that's already the case. It's already the case. So what pataphysics does is just, in an absence of anything on the page, looks to the immediate environment of the author and mines elements from that environment to try to not put on the page, because that's writing, but take the page out to these objects. Does that make sense?
fact making them worse. If that were the case, then we should really try to prevent that, because that's making things really bad for us. So as soon as somebody theorizes that that is what's happening, that brings this entity into existence, which is doing everything that they're saying it's doing.
So, like, once again, there's a one-to-one correlation with thinking an idea and that idea manifesting as like a in-universe fictional thing. And so it's just a rehash, you see. It's just a rehash of what you've already done out of universe. You've just repackaged everything that you've already done out of universe to get to the moment of repackaging and considered it new. That's what this guy's, I hate to say it, that's what pataphysics largely is doing. It's just repackaging already opened items, slapping tape on them in a new package, same toy, and basically trying to sell it to you as new,
Doing. So there is some informational conceptual entity that feeds off of being perceived as significant.
God, what sounds really thirsty.
And this entity
Sounds like it would have an OnlyFans.
was brought into existence by someone thinking of it, and once it became an idea in the realm of human ideas, which is what we call the noosphere.
See, the noosphere right here is just an analogy for your sandbox. I mean, it's just not very exciting. It's just not very inventive. I mean, it's a one-trick pony that's done like ad infinitum over and over again. You literally are just holding up a video camera or a mirror to your own mental processes and just slapping the term fiction on them. That's it.
Okay, that's
Once it became...
I mean, now there's something to that. Don't get me wrong. You have to be very observant about your own processes. And Dr. Placeholder here does an excellent job with that. If you do go read SCP-6747, the amount of detailed attention to one's own conceptual process of coming up with an idea and getting it out into the, whatever world, there's a severe awareness, a very intelligent awareness from this individual right here in that process, in observing that process. And that's really, once again, what he's done with pataphysics. He's taken the physics part of it quite literally and has decided to make some sort of actual nomenclative like paradigm or structure to approach it with. So there's something to be said for that. That's obviously very effortful and it's not easy to do. And once again, the thing that I'll always be most impressed with Dr. Placeholder McDoctorate here is that he has done what he has done and made it somewhat commercially successful. These concepts are typically not very consumer friendly, so kudos to that. But so I'm not saying that it's void of skill or void of talent. It's just that, it just plays itself over and over again. It's like the same garnish on every dish, or it's like the same topping on every, like if every dish on the menu came with the exact same setup, with the same side item, the same accoutrement, the same condiments. That's what pataphysics feels like to me. It's just the same dish over and over again, just slight variations.
Once it became an idea in the realm of human ideas, it suddenly started to do all of the things that everybody thought about it. So the idea was some person thought it was amplifying all of these documents in the 001 slot, and so it came into existence when they thought of that, and now that's what it's doing. So they move all of the proposals out of the 001 slot, and what I say in the document is the reason why they wouldn't expect these things to be like as big and significant as like they are supposedly being amplified to be is because they're what are called retirement proposals. So my justification in my proposal for the presence of multiple 001 proposals existing in the same universe is that they're only stored in the 001 slot just as a formality. The idea is when someone works at the Foundation for a long time and is very impactful and does a lot.
I mean, do you see how this is like slowly like Homer Simpsoning itself into the hedges of what's already true? I mean, you basically recreated, what already happens. I mean, it's like reading what's actually happening on the SCP Wiki straight and playing it straight and just sending it right into your own 001. I mean, your 001 is the pre-existing idea of what a 001 is for the SCP Wiki, which, I guess you get kudos for doing it when no one else had before. But to me, it's just, once again, it just seems a little, is cheap the word? I mean, what you're really doing is just collapsing that typical gap between the author sitting and writing and the page that they produce. You're just slowly decreasing and collapsing that gap until they're the same exact thing. So, I mean, that's it in a nutshell, isn't it?
Important things in the Foundation's history. When they retire or they pass away, either if they're retiring, they write a proposal themselves, or if they pass away, someone else writes a proposal in their honor.
It's a little different.
Just talking, like proposing an anomaly or something really important that they did during their time at the Foundation. So the idea is these are all like smaller scale, sort of more grounded interpretations of all of the existing 001 proposals. And this supplement...
I mean, this is a perfect example. So, I mean, this is a supplemental page. It's obviously not to do with the actual thrust of the document that he's talking about here. But, I mean, this page alone is built off everyone else's work. I mean, it literally is just taking what everyone else did and then lubricating it until the point where it just slips right on through to the page, and you've just repackaged it in some new packaging that, if you don't pay attention, I guess, it looks like it's a new product. It's not.
Entry document is at the top of the first iteration.
I mean, this is what I do. This is what I do every week when I go and I summarize SCPs, I mean, like, trust me, like, I sympathize, I empathize actually with the work that went into this page, but I mean, I'm not over here saying that, like, I don't know. It's just it's a step too far, man. It's just too much.
Of my proposal. So you can go and click on it and be like, oh, these are like these weird, like smaller scale versions of the existing proposals. You can go look at them in like QNTM's proposal. The lock is like an egg that supposedly has the entire universe inside of it, even though it's inside the universe, and there's a lock.
See, and that's a nice way to be pataphysical. I'll say it 1,000 times. The best pataphysics are pataphysics that don't state themselves as such. As soon as you are working explicitly in pataphysics, you've already gone probably a little too far. You've already ruined it. It's like a really nice ahi tuna that you just need to walk past the grill, so it's got that nice sear on the outside. But if you cook a tuna, if you cook a tuna, you know what I'm saying? It becomes that stuff you get in the can. It's not good. There's like a minute difference between that nice peppery sear and cat food, So by the time you are addressing the article as something pataphysical, I mean, 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to be absolutist about it. It's already bad. You've already ruined the dish, man.
Lock on it, and they can't find the key to it, and they can't open it, and they can't break it by any means.
And all that to say, Quantums is more pataphysically sophisticated because it deals with layers of dimensional narrative, in a very understated way. So, I mean, it's more sophisticated than just being like, hey, this is about pataphysics, and look at all these 001s that everybody has here. I wonder what's up with that. Let me just put them in a supplemental page.
You don't even know what that would mean, or why the universe is being contained within an egg, or what it means for the universe to be contained and what it's being contained from. And there's all of these cool implications from it. And so the smaller scale version of that's like the retirement proposal version, is like, it's an egg timer, and when you turn the egg timer backwards, it turns back time. So
okay, so I guess what he's saying is that all these are sort of like his own headcanons for these things, as much as that will be allowed. I don't know.
If you think about it, the universe is still inside the egg, because when you turn it, it turns the universe backwards in time, but that's not really conveyed by it. And the main idea is, it's like, after everyone, it talks about the significance. So it's like Dr. QNTM or whatever. Like, I made up a fake name. I think it was Dr. Quantum.
God. Do you see the cheapening happening here? Is there something cheapening about taking all of the people who wrote a 001 and doctorifying their names for them? Is there something a little wrong about that? It's almost like digging, disinterring someone, and like puppeting their body around like this. I hate that the assumption was that a way to take these great elements of like SCP-01 lore and make them better would be to submit them to the same literary aggrandizing processes that unfortunately Dr. Placeholder here feels is a good thing to do, as we can see from his own doctorization of his own name, and not only a doctorization once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times. Dr. Placeholder McDoctorate MD PhD. Like, I don't know. There's something in me that says that, I don't know, man. Just doctorifying everybody. It's like throwing an Instagram filter on everybody that you like for yourself. I just don't know about that.
Dr. Quantum proposed this anomaly as their retirement proposal, because it was the first time traveling or time bending anomaly that the Foundation discovered, and it was very significant to the Foundation's understanding of modern temporal anomalies, or whatever. And they're all things of that nature. Lily's proposal is a sound.
That's Dr. Lily to you.
Or like some realization that will happen 24 hours before all life ceases to exist on Earth. And it's a very just like minimalist proposal, and it says that like all of the flowers on the planet will bloom and crime will go down worldwide and everyone will feel content and happy before the world ends. And the
fantastic 001, by the way. So pretty. Just fucking stupidly beautiful 001. I mean, holy shit. Not his. I'm talking about Lily's.
Retirement proposal version of that is like some phenomenon that was discovered by this Dr. Lily person who worked at the Foundation, where when someone of high authority at the Foundation dies and then is buried, the area within a certain radius of their remains has an anomalous amount of plant growth, and can be used for harvesting crops and things like that. Do
you see the cheapening happening here? I mean, you're taking the grandiloquent scales of something like Lily's 001, and now you're reducing it to a 5 meter radius around somebody's gravestone. I mean, I know I'm just talking about distances here, but I think the argument still sustains itself for other components of this cheapening effect. That's all we're watching here.
Like that, and so that was very significant to the study of anomalous plant life within the Foundation. And those are just examples of all of those.
So instead of the world blowing up, and we all come together in a kumbaya moment a second, before it happens, instead it's just some botanical anomaly. Cool.
And I didn't write all of these. I wrote a few of them so that people could sort of get the gist, and then I opened it up to a bunch of my friends, and I was like, take other proposals that you like and do these smaller scale versions of them, these retirement proposal versions. And so that's actually a collaborative log. If anyone goes to that supplement page, they're free to add their own small scale interpretation of an existing 001 proposal. Wow,
now that's cool. Now that is cool. Now, I don't know when the last time somebody took him up on that offer here. Let's see. Oh, look, it was recently. Starch Tuber is a relatively new guy. Oh, he just changed something. Oh, he just changed something. No, he added Dr. Gull's proposal. Yeah, it's not Gull. Okay. So that's pretty fucking cool, man. Look, I got to give you props where you get it. That's fucking cool as shit. Now, I still uphold everything I just said about that, but I still think that's pretty cool as shit. I'm surprised that the authors who write their own 001s don't do this. Isn't that a little weird that they don't? Wouldn't they want to do that? Why don't they do that? I don't know.
So the idea is that they were all originally these small scale ones, and someone was like, why are they all so much more amplified if they're these like retirement proposal things? And then that brought into existence this entity that started taking anything that was in the SCP-001 slot and amplifying it. And so because they theorized that might be what's happening, they move all of the current amplified 001 proposals out of the 001 slot, and in the 001 slot they write, hey, don't put anything in the 001 slot. It seems like there might be an informational entity amplifying it, making the retirement proposals more amplified than they should be.
Okay, so that's pretty cool. Okay, that's a little cooler. I'll give him that. But, you've kind of just leapfrogged out of the, what is the phrase? Out of the frying pan and into the fire or something like that. Because that's basically Kate McTierris's 001. Like, it's literally what it is. So, okay, I like what he did there. I like what he did, but it's just like, it's like putting an economy on pause, and then when you open, it back up saying that you fixed something. It's like you made them super duper small, on a small scale, and then you just found a way to reintroduce them as the, large scale significant things that they are. And that's not really an impressive move. It's more like a two-step that you have to really like break before you can fix, and I'd rather you not break it.
Okay. And it should be fine to write about the entity in the slot because we don't think it can amplify itself if it even exists. We don't even know if it exists. And then it adds an addendum to the 001 file saying that like it needs to be like transferred to a higher level of clearance and that people need to pay more attention to it. And then Maria Jones, who is like, I don't want to diminish her by saying she's the receptionist of the foundation, but she's like in charge of all of the like archiving and historical records. She's the director of RISA, the Records and Information Security Administration within the foundation. So she's a pretty big deal. And she's like, nobody uploaded this file. We have no history of anybody actually uploading this file to the 001 slot that talks about this informational entity. And we don't know who wrote it, and we don't know who's adding these addenda. And then there's something added that says, like, please disregard this message. Please, like, treat the 001 slot as more significant. And then Maria Jones is like, I didn't write that. Please disregard it. So after all that happens, then it's like you can click to the next iteration,
and his name is the containment class now. We can't avoid these things. It's just so clear as day.
I'll explain in a bit why they're presented as different documents that you can click through. But you click to the next one, and now reality has been changed. So all of the people that work at Site 01, the head command center of the Foundation, including the 05 Council, the Records and Security Information Administration, and several other people.
Let's just see how many CSS themes we can cram into a 001. You feel me?
I have no recollection of any Maria Jones ever existing, and have kind of forgotten about this 001 thing where it's amplifying proposals or amplifying what's happening in the 001 slot. And they just looked at the 001 slot one day, which
I'm losing you, man.
Now in this version of reality never had 001 proposals in it, never had the retirement proposals in it, and it's just like a single document that they have no idea. It says it was uploaded by Maria, a set of credentials belonging to someone in the database named Maria Jones.
This is cool as hell, by the way.
Says,
this box right here with the description up top, that's cool as shit. Good job.
Maria Jones does not exist. and they're all really confused. They're like, "What? Who is this Maria Jones person? Like, what in the hell?"
So it's like Kate McTier's 001 meets Kalinen's 001 meets the ending of Metal Gear Solid 2 meets Soul Train. I don't know. Well, this is certainly interesting. We're going to kind of cap it here. It's been about an hour. We are more than halfway through this interview, so I do expect that we will finish this tomorrow. I may have this on 2x speed or 1.75 or something like that, just to help facilitate that. But yeah, I think I want to like this. This is pretty. This has the potential to be really cool. So let's just see how it ends. Of course, I have my gripes with it, but that's it's truncatable stuff. I always have gripes. So let's see how it ends up. And I think whatever you think of this interview and of this individual who's being interviewed, you got to give some props. And that this stuff is just, I think, inherently more interesting than other topics we could be talking about. No offense to the Yurt boys. But it's just nice to get back to something that feels engaging. It feels substantive. So thank you to Placeholder and the special Containment Podcast, guys from Forlorn Foundry, for this one. I do imagine, by the way, we'll spend a lot of time on this podcast. At some point, we'll go back to Simply Creative People. We got to hear a couple of those. And for sure, we're going to hit up Sean Saxon again. But if you all have any recommendations as to things that you would like to see up here that we can watch together and shoot the shit over, feel free to send a message. I don't know how Twitch works. I don't know if there's like a DM thing here, but whatever. You can find me. Just find me and just send me a message. But I'll be happy to take recommendations. I do thank you so much for joining me tonight. We do this every weeknight at 7:30 p.m. CST. This has been SCPCRNP, aka Lack of Lepers. Thank you so much for joining you, and I'll see you next time. Peace.